When I found my sister's body, I didn't cry. I counted the stab wounds like a mission report. 23 deep cuts, each one colder than the last. I'd spent years pulling bloodied soldiers out of war zones, but nothing prepared me for the battlefield inside my own family. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. Chapter 1. The night everything went silent, I was miles away from home when the call came. A soft, broken voice from the hospital saying my sister's name. Morgan Fields. Critical, multiple stab wounds. The words didn't register at first. It sounded like radio static. Maybe because I'd heard those same tones too many times in combat updates overseas. I was supposed to be done with missions, done with blood. But hearing stabbed 23 times pulled me straight back into the mindset I'd buried with my uniform. I drove through the night, past every checkpoint, every gunmetal mile between me and home. The flashbacks came with the headlights, training grounds, silent kills, brothers I couldn't save. And now Morgan, the kid who sent me drawings while I was deployed, saying, "Come back safe. I made cookies for when you return." By the time I reached the hospital, the smell hit me first, antiseptic and quiet dread. I stood outside her ICU room staring at the glass. My sister was almost unrecognizable, pale as frost, stitched up like a corpse brought halfway back to life. A nurse whispered, "She's lucky to be alive." Lucky. They didn't see the bandages across her arms where she fought back. They didn't see my reflection in the window, jaw tight, waiting for orders that weren't coming. The detective on duty, a guy named Colin, approached me with a folder. "We're still collecting evidence, but looks like a gang initiation. Random violence. Sorry for your loss." I looked at him dead in the eye. "She's not lost." He sighed. "You were military, right? Then you know what I'm saying. Let us handle it." Let them handle it. I'd heard that line before. Commanders who said the same thing after ambushes went wrong. I waited until he left before pulling a chair next to Morgan's bed. Her hand was cold, small, taped up and trembling under the monitor's green pulse. "It's me," I said quietly. "Logan." For a moment, nothing. Then, her lips parted. A voice barely existed under the oxygen mask. "Serpents," she whispered. My stomach dropped. That name wasn't random. The Serpents, a street outfit with military precision, too organized for rookies. I'd heard it years ago when I was still on base. "Who?" I asked, leaning closer, my hand tightening around hers. Her eyes fluttered. A tear slid down her cheek, and then the heart monitor screamed flat for a second before stabilizing. Doctors rushed in. I was pushed out. I just kept hearing that name. Serpents. Out in the hospital parking lot, I sat inside my truck, opened the old compartment under the seat, and pulled out my retired combat knife. The same one I promised never to touch again. I remembered my commanding officer's voice. "Once you go back to war, you don't leave the same man you returned as." I stared at my reflection in the blade. Maybe that's exactly what I need to be again. The next morning, I went back to the alley where Morgan was attacked. The police tape was half torn, flies buzzing over dried blood like it was already old news. I walked the perimeter like a patrol zone, slow, quiet, observant. Then something glinted under a dumpster. I crouched, lifted the edge, and froze. It was a broken dog tag, scuffed with blood. My fingers tightened around it. The engraving was faint, but clear enough to read the erased name and an embossed insignia, one I'd recognize anywhere. A trident and blade mark, Navy SEAL emblem. That couldn't be a coincidence. My pulse hit combat rhythm again. Someone with training, someone who knew how to strike and vanish. And then I noticed a marking scratched into the wall nearby, R1D3R. It wasn't graffiti. It was a call sign. Ryder. I hadn't heard that name in years. We'd served together once, until he got discharged under suspicion of illegal weapons transport. I'd kept quiet back then out of loyalty. Loyalty now felt like a hand grenade pin I'd been holding on to too long. I pocketed the tag and walked away from the crime scene, feeling the old heat build up behind my scars. By the time the sun fell, I had already opened a secure laptop and started digging. If the serpents were using trained ex-military, there was no way this was random. And if Ryder was alive and part of this, then my sister wasn't just attacked. She was targeted. The mission was back on. I spent the next night in the truck, parked 2 blocks from that alley. Couldn't sleep. The same siren sounds, same flickering streetlight. But this time, I wasn't looking for signs of life. I was studying movement, shadow lines, escape routes. The habits came back automatically, like a soldier loading muscle memory after years on standby. At 3 a.m., a black SUV rolled slow through the corner. Windows tinted, no plates. The kind of car I'd seen used for body drops overseas. My grip tightened around the steering wheel. They slowed near the alley, headlights flashing once before driving on. A signal. Someone inside that alley was watching. When I stepped out, the night smelled like fuel and iron. My boots echoed on the concrete, and that's when I saw it. Fresh footprints in the dried blood. I crouched next to them. Deep, heavy, deliberately placed. Whoever made them wasn't running. They were walking calm, confident. I followed the prints, and under a broken crate, I found a single cartridge shell. The bullet hadn't been fired. It was engraved. Not the usual brand mark, but words, etched with a pocket knife. For sister. Whoever dropped that wanted me to find it. Behind me, someone said quietly, "You shouldn't be here, Logan." I turned fast. Detective Collins stood with his hands in his coat pockets, a cigarette glowing in the dark. His suit was the kind you wear before a funeral, not during an active case. "You tailing me now?" I asked. "I expected you'd come back," he said. "You look too calm for a man who lost family." I stepped closer. "Calm isn't what you should worry about." He lit another cigarette, exhaled slow. "Look, the serpents own half this neighborhood. If what your sister whispered is true, that name comes with a death sentence. I'm not saying leave because I care about you. I'm saying leave because they already know your name." "Heard that before," I said. Never took the advice. Colin gave a short, tired laugh. "Thought so." He reached inside his coat and handed me an envelope. "Forensic report. Thought you'd want it before it disappears from evidence." Then he walked off, smoke trailing behind him like regret. I opened the envelope under a street lamp. Photos of the crime scene, Morgan's jacket, the knife recovered from the gutter. The blade still had prints on it, partials belonging to someone named Ryder Kane. That name hit me like a bullet. He was real. He was here. And the last I'd heard, Ryder disappeared after I testified in a tribunal that cleared his record. I protected him once. Maybe that's why Morgan got 23 holes instead of 1. Back in the truck, I plugged my old military drive into the laptop. Encrypted files only opened with biometric scan, my thumbprint, shaky but still valid. The soldier archive kicked in, troop logs, Black Ops footage, civilian contacts, stopover records. Ryder's last deployment. Kandahar. Last known associate. Grant Fields. My breath caught. My brother. No way. Grant had been the golden child, successful, rich, running a logistics company that supplied armored convoys to construction sites. He funded my last operation overseas. How the hell did his name appear next to Ryder's? I tracked his company's shipments through public records. Half of them routed through a warehouse on Riverside District, for blocks from where Morgan was attacked. Another connection. I zoomed in on drone satellite data. Heat signatures from that facility 3 nights ago. Midnight movement, multiple vehicles in and out. No record on city logs. Military pattern. Grant's name burned on the screen. I called him. He answered too fast. "Logan." "Jesus, finally. I've been worried." "Were you?" I said flatly. "Funny. I only heard from you once Morgan's name hit the news." He hesitated. "Listen, man. I didn't want to call earlier because you were cleaning up." "Stop," he snapped. "Don't do this. You've got no idea. Then make me understand. Why does your supply chain link to a group that carved up our sister?" For a long pause, I heard only his breath on the other end. Then, You're looking at wrong data. You want to see the truth? Come to my office tomorrow. Alone. He hung up before I could answer. I dropped the phone on the passenger seat and stared out into the empty road. Every instinct told me he was lying. But I needed confirmation, not assumptions. I planned to show up, unannounced. Before sunrise, I drove to the industrial district. The smell of chemical oil hit hard. The warehouse was closed, padlocked, no guards in sight. But near the dumpster gate, a trail of parallel tire marks, fresh. Recent load delivery. I pressed 2 fingers against the oil-stained concrete, still warm. Inside, the loading bay was dark except for one flickering light overhead. I slipped between aisles stacked with crates labeled hydraulic equipment, though every seal screamed repacked. I cracked one open carefully. Under the rags were compact weapon kits, modified hardware, same brand we used during covert ops. Untraceable, military grade. So Grant wasn't a supplier. He was a trafficker. And those guns, probably the ones used against Morgan. Sudden sound, footsteps approaching. I ducked behind a crate, handgun ready. 2 voices echoed between metal walls. Boss says clean it all up. Police hit the alley again, one said. And that seal, the brother, he's sniffing around, the other muttered. Ryder said he should have finished the girl off properly. My heart pounded. If I moved too soon, I'd blow my cover. So I listened. You think Grant's keeping him on the payroll after this mess? He's family man. Blood sticks. Grant just wants it quiet till the next shipment's out. Every word came heavier than the last. I waited until they moved toward the exit, then slipped out the side door before my rage did something I couldn't reverse. By the time I got back in the truck, my hands were shaking, not fear. Controlled fury. The kind that makes you breathe slower, think sharper, act colder. I drove straight to Grant's office tower, glass walls, shining like it was better than the dirt he covered up. His receptionist tried to stop me. One look at my face, and she didn't move again. Grant came out of his office, smile painted on, but his eyes told another story. You look terrible, brother, he said. You should sleep. Sleep. I stepped close enough to smell his cologne. The same brand he wore the night of Morgan's graduation. You're working with Ryder King. His eyes flickered. Barely, but enough. Where'd you get that? Doesn't matter. I found your weapons. The ones feeding those killers. He held up a hand. You have no idea what you're involved in. I slammed his desk with my fist. Papers scattered. Don't lie. You knew they attacked her. Grant's mask slipped for a split second. A twitch near his mouth. I didn't approve that hit, he whispered. I told them scare, not kill. She knew something. She was running her mouth about my shipments. So you silenced her? No. He grabbed my arm, desperate. I tried to warn her, but I shoved him off. You showed up at her hospital. I swear I didn't. Ryder went off-grid. He's not listening anymore. He thinks you and I are threats. I stared at him, searching his face, trying to separate the liar from the brother I'd once trusted. But all I saw was a man afraid of losing his empire. Tell me where he is, I said. Grant swallowed, shaking his head. You'll get yourself killed. Maybe, but I'm already there. I left his office before he could answer. The elevator mirrored my face back, tired, unshaven, older than last week. Behind me, workers pretended not to stare. They knew the tension. They felt it in the air. Back in the parking lot, I opened my phone. A text appeared from an unknown number. Think you're a hero again. Check your sister's room. My chest tightened. I raced to the hospital. The halls were chaotic, alarms blaring, nurses shouting. I pushed through until I saw the room. Broken glass, equipment scattered. Morgan lay unconscious again, nurses shouting for more oxygen. Someone had been there. Again. Through the shattered window, I saw tire marks fading into the street, the same tread pattern as the ones outside the warehouse. I stood frozen until the security guard ran up. We pulled the feed from 10 minutes ago, he said, handing me a phone. The footage loaded. A masked man entering the room, syringe in hand. Just before he turned toward the camera's light, His sleeve rolled back, faded tattoo on the wrist. A knife wrapped around a serpent. And above it, initials drawn in black ink. G.F. My legs went numb. Grant Fields. My own brother. The blood on the pavement wasn't just Morgan's anymore. It was ours. The hospital smell didn't leave my clothes. It followed me out into the cold, into the truck, into every breath I forced myself to take. Seeing that tattoo on the footage, G.F., was like getting stabbed myself. Grant. My own blood. I drove without direction, just streets blurring together until the anger cooled to calculation. Emotion kills discipline. Training kicked in. Assess, confirm, act. I needed proof solid enough to bury him with, not just a shaky video. I pulled over by the docks, opened my laptop, and accessed the Phantom file, a restricted archive only a handful of SEALs knew existed. It stored covert operation logs and field data, but more importantly, identities tied to illegal military contractors, the kind of men who traded uniforms for black cash. I typed in the aliases I'd overheard: Ryder Kane, the Serpents, Grant Fields. A coded list appeared. Contracts, shipments, payments traced to a dummy firm, Fields International Logistics. That name should have belonged to my dead father's legitimate business, not Grant's private war fund. Each entry had coordinates, delivery times, and cargo types. H-47 payloads, which translated to weapon crates, the same kind sitting in that warehouse. My pulse slammed against my chest as I scrolled further down. A line item from 2 weeks ago. Asset removal. M. Fields. Status initiated. Morgan. She wasn't a victim of random rage. She was tagged in a contract cleanup. I leaned back, fighting the urge to smash the screen. Every instinct screamed revenge, but something else tugged at me. Why? Why sign a death order for your own sister? The phone buzzed. A message from Colin, the detective. Logan, you there? Need to talk. I think there's another connection. I drove to meet him near a worn-out diner edge of town. He sat alone in the booth, tired eyes, coffee untouched. You look like you haven't slept, I said, sitting across. He shrugged. You look like you're about to start a war. I ignored the jab. You found something. He slid a photo across the table. Security footage. Warehouse district. Your brother meeting Ryder Kane last Tuesday night. The picture showed Grant shaking hands with him beside a truck. Grainy, but clear enough. Same tattoo mark visible under Ryder's sleeve, snake coiled around a blade. Colin shook his head. This isn't street-level crime, Logan. This is coordinated. And you can't fix it with guns. I'm not fixing, I muttered. I'm finishing. Before he could reply, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, same format as before. Talk too much, and she goes again. Attached was a picture, Morgan's hospital window from outside, shot from across the street just minutes ago. Colin cursed under his breath. They're watching her. They're watching us, I said. I jumped out of the booth, scanning the road. The streetlight opposite the hospital blinked once, twice. A silhouette stood there for a split second before walking away. I memorized the gait, limping right leg. Ryder. He'd taken shrapnel during a desert op. I could spot that posture anywhere. I got in the truck again, Colin following behind. We drove toward the motion. Halfway down, I killed my lights. Ryder turned into an abandoned repair shop. I motioned for Colin to stay back. He didn't argue. The air reeked of burnt metal inside. I crept through the hallway until voices echoed. Grant's losing it, one man said. He's just scared of his brother, another answered. Ryder ain't. He said if that seal keeps digging, he'll feed him to the ocean himself. Then laughter, low, cruel. I moved closer until my boot nudged something metallic. A can rolled forward, clattering loud. Silence hit instantly. Who's there? Someone barked. 3 men burst from the room. I swung first. Clean elbow, right hook, knee to the ribs. Another lunged. I smashed him against the wall, grabbed his shirt. Where's Ryder? He spat blood, sneering. You'll find him where your sister almost died. Before I could press further, he tore free and bolted. Tires screeched outside. Colin's siren cut through the air. The thugs scattered, disappearing into the smoke. I stood there catching my breath, staring at the gun one of them dropped. Standard issue Navy pistol. Serial number filed off. When I got outside, Colin warned me, "If they're baiting you, don't follow." But it wasn't bait. It was a message. I drove back to the hospital again. Security doubled this time, cameras realigned. Morgan was alive but still unconscious, fighting quietly. I sat beside her, speaking low. They think they broke us. They have no idea what they built instead. Through the glass window, I spotted a shadow moving near the parking lot. Not Ryder this time, Grant. He stood in the rain, watching the ward from across the street, his face white under the light. I went out, slow steps, no weapon visible. "Why are you here?" I asked. He turned, voice shaking. "You think I wanted this? Ryder's out of control. I signed deals. Yes, but I never ordered her death." "Then stop him." "Too late," Grant said. "He's on a new job, covering the last loose ends. You're one of them." I stepped closer. "How deep are you, Grant?" His answer was barely a whisper. "Deep enough that when this burns, it'll take me with it." Before I could ask more, a shot cracked through the night. Glass shattered beside us. Grant ducked. I dragged him behind the car. Across the street, a dark figure ran through the rain. Ryder, rifle slung low, escaping into the back alley. I tried to chase, but lost him in the maze of streets. Grant was trembling, drenched, half in shock. "He's not going to stop," he muttered. "He thinks we're both traitors now. Then we end it before he does." He looked straight at me, eyes hollow. "You can't fight him like this. He has soldiers. He has guns. He has everything we once swore to stand for." "Then I'll use what he forgot I learned," I said quietly. "Discipline, patience, and silence." He didn't argue. Maybe he knew there was no other way left. I dropped him at his house with a warning. "If you lie again, you'll wish Ryder gets to you first." As I drove away, the first light hit the rooftops, pale and bitter. The storm had passed, but something told me the next one would be worse. When I parked by the seawall, I pulled out the broken dog tag again, tracing the emblem with my thumb. This wasn't about one attack anymore. This was a full network, a ghost operation hidden behind family ties and corporate masks. And somewhere in that chain, Ryder was still moving, still hunting, still cleaning up the last witnesses. I looked out at the waves, whispering to myself, "You took one of ours, Ryder. Now it's my turn to come for you." The decision was made before dawn touched the horizon. I was going back to war. I spent the next day watching my brother's house from a distance. Every minute felt colder than the last. Grant had money, guards, alarms, the whole clean life act, but none of that mattered now. I wasn't here to scare him. I was here to find truth, the kind that doesn't wash off with luxury or lies. Inside my jacket, I carried two things: the dog tag with Ryder's mark and a photo of Morgan before the attack, smiling beside a cake she baked for Grant's birthday. My blood boiled when I thought of how he smiled back that night, pretending everything was perfect. When the sun sank behind the skyline, Grant's car pulled into the driveway. I followed him quietly to the back entrance, waiting until his driver left. Then I knocked. Once, calm, deliberate. The kind of knock that makes a guilty man hold his breath. He opened the door with shaky hands. "Logan, what are you doing here?" "Your security's bad," I said. "You might want to fix that." I stepped inside before he could speak. He locked the door, glancing around like someone might be listening. "You can't just show up." "I can, and I did." I tossed the broken dog tag onto his marble counter. "Recognize this?" He froze. His face drained color. "Where did you?" "In the alley where Morgan almost bled out." He rubbed his forehead. "This isn't what you think." "Then tell me what it is." I cut in, voice steady. "Because your logistics company funded the Serpent's weapons. Ryder worked for you. Your initials were on the man who tried to kill her twice." Start talking before I lose the little patience I've got left. Grant's eyes flickered to a framed photo on the wall. Our family. I didn't want her dead, he said. She got close to something she shouldn't have. What was it? A shipment, he whispered. It wasn't just guns. Ryder promised easy money running unregistered defense tech. I handled paperwork, no questions asked. Then Morgan found one of the invoices. She called me, begged me to stop. Ryder heard. He didn't stop. I stepped closer. You knew he'd hurt her. I tried to stop him, Grant snapped. He didn't care anymore, Logan. He runs things now. You think you can face a man like him? He lives like a ghost. The serpents would tear you apart before you even knock on their door. I've seen ghosts before, I said. I buried too many already. He shook his head. You walk into this, you're dead. You'll just make things worse for her. Worse? I asked low. You saw what they did. She'll have scars for life because of your deals. Grant looked down, voice cracking. You think I don't hate myself? I've been funneling his routes to cops behind their backs, trying to shut him down without starting a war. I didn't buy it completely, but his tone had that edge of truth painful enough to feel real. I leaned on the counter. Then prove it. Show me the ledger. He hesitated, then slipped into his office and unlocked a small safe behind a painting. Pulled out a black drive. This has records, payments, meetings, everything. But you can't go alone, Logan. He's expecting you now. I took the drive, pocketed it. I don't need your permission. Grant exhaled. You still don't understand. Ryder doesn't fear death. He feeds on it. I almost laughed. So did we. He stepped forward, grabbing my arm. Listen, if he finds out I helped you. I looked down at his hand. If this is you helping me, you're late by 23 stab wounds. Grant let go, defeated. Then what happens now? I find Ryder, I said. I end this. Quietly. As I turned to leave, he called out, Logan, wait. I stopped at the door. He lowered his voice. Whatever happens, don't come looking for me after. I won't survive this one. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Out in the driveway, I scanned through the drive using my laptop. Names, dates, routes, consistent, precise. One entry caught my attention. Meeting, Ryder/Riverside Warehouse, 0300. Same place where the weapons were stored. Same hour Morgan was attacked that night. The ground felt tighter under my boots as I drove back there. I cut the headlights before the final turn, watching from the shadows. Two guards smoked by a door, rifles hanging lazy by their sides. These weren't gang rats. They moved like soldiers. Ryder trained them well. I waited until one wandered off to check his phone. Then I slipped past the fence, quiet and precise. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of metal and gas. Crates stacked high again, new ones marked only with letters and numbers. I turned on my flashlight just enough to read one of them. Fields Logistics, authorized delivery. My jaw clenched. The drive hadn't even scratched the surface. This was bigger than Grant or Ryder. Movement from the catwalk made me roll into cover. Heavy boots above, steady pace. Then a voice, deep, calm, familiar. I knew you'd come. Ryder. He stood on the railing, backlit by the glow of warehouse lights, holding his rifle like a weightless branch. You were always predictable, Logan. Family first, rules later. You should have stayed buried, I said. He laughed softly. We both know how this ends. Yeah, I said. One of us leaving in a body bag. I didn't want to kill your sister, he said, stepping closer. Grant asked me to make her disappear, not bleed her dry. Things just got messy. Messy, I barked. You left her in an alley to die. That's not business. That's personal. Ryder tilted his head. You want someone to blame. Blame your brother. He built my world. That's why I'll end both of yours. He smiled, dark and calm. You always were dramatic. You won't even make it out alive. He raised his rifle. I fired first, clean, low toward the railing. The metal sparked, and Ryder flipped behind a crate before returning fire. Bullets ripped through the walls. I rolled under cover, glass shattering, the air full of smoke and thunder. Then silence. No footsteps. No shadow. He was gone, vanished through the tunnels below. I stood there, chest burning, watching smoke curl out of the holes in the wall. The shot hadn't killed him, but it told him one thing. I was coming. I grabbed the nearest crate and slid it open. Under the tarp lay another horror. Gas cylinders, dozens of them, stacked for transport. Not weapons for a gang, but explosives for something bigger. Grant's signature was on the manifest. I finally understood. The Serpents weren't a gang, they were camouflage. The real operation was a network using city transport to smuggle chemical containers across the border. Morgan stumbled into that, and they tried to erase her for it. The pieces fit now. The hunt wasn't just revenge anymore. It was cleanup, justice, the kind nobody writes reports about. I walked out into the dark, the echo of my boots fading behind me. The next time I returned, the warehouse wouldn't be standing. The war had officially begun. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Morgan's face under the hospital lights and Ryder's grin glowing behind the muzzle of his rifle. The shot that missed me still rang in my skull. Before dawn, I drove straight to the hospital again. The rain had washed the roads clean, but not the weight in my chest. Inside, everything looked calm, too calm. Nurses walking slow, guards posted by doors. But I learned in combat that quiet wasn't always peace. Sometimes it was a countdown. Morgan was awake this time. Her eyes opened as I stepped into the room. Pale, bruised, fragile, but back from the edge. When she saw me, her lips trembled. "You came back?" I sat beside her and forced a small smile. Wasn't planning to miss this reunion. Her voice cracked. They came again, didn't they?" I hesitated. She read the silence for what it was. Tears filled her eyes. Why us?" I took her hand, careful not to hurt the foreline. "Because you saw something they wanted buried." She shook her head weakly. "It wasn't just papers, Logan. It was a video. Ryder and Grant." Her eyes darted toward the door, as if even saying the name made the walls listen. I uploaded it to my drive before they found me. My pulse jumped. "Where?" "Home," she whispered. "Locker in my closet. Folder named Sunday Pie." I hid it so Grant wouldn't. Before she could finish, the hallway outside erupted in commotion. A crash. Raised voices. The security guard burst in, breathless. "Sir, we've got a man trying to get into ICU storage." I stood instantly. "Stay with her," I told the nurse, then rushed into the hall. At the end of the corridor, a figure in dark hoodie sprinted toward the emergency exit, holding a sealed syringe pack. I chased him through the stairwell. He jumped rails 2 floors down, landing rough, but moving fast. I caught up at the parking level, slammed him against a pillar. The syringe flew from his hand. "Who sent you?" I demanded. He didn't answer, just coughed and laughed. "You think this ends with me?" "Doesn't matter," I said, twisting his wrist until he dropped another item, an access card. It wasn't hospital issued. It bore a serpent logo. By the time I looked up, he'd shoved me and took off. I let him go. The card was enough. Proof they were watching even in here. Back inside Morgan's room, security doubled. I told her nothing, didn't want her panic back. But in my head, everything lined up too well. Grant's pipeline, Ryder's network, and now an insider helping them reach her again. I called Colin. He picked up after 2 rings. "You got movement." "They're still after her," I said. I caught one inside the building. Hospital staff involved. "Has to be." He had access. "Then pull her out," Colin said flatly. "Transfer her to a federal ward under alias. They'll still find her." "Logan, listen to me. You don't get to handle this alone anymore." "I never handled it alone," I muttered. "They made it personal." He sighed. "You can't win a war on emotion." "I'm not fighting on emotion," I said. "I'm fighting on logic, and logic says if I cut the head, the body dies. Meaning Ryder first, then Grant." He groaned. "You'll end up behind bars. If that's the cost, it's cheap." I ended the call. Outside, the storm had crawled back in. Streets empty, air thick with rain and exhaust. I drove straight to Morgan's house, the place she rented alone in a peaceful suburb. The irony of peaceful didn't mean much now. Inside, everything was still. Her small living room smelled faintly of vanilla candle she probably used to keep her world warm. It made my chest ache. I moved to her room and found the closet locker easily. Code: her birthday. She never changed it. Inside, stacks of notebooks, a small jewelry box, and the flash drive marked Sunday Pie. I plugged it into my laptop, praying it worked. The video opened with shaky footage, Morgan's camera on a desk, recording a conversation from a half-cracked door. Grant's voice, clear. "Ryder, I told you to scare her, not. She knows too much," Ryder replied. "Once she talks, we all go under. I can't let her." "Then don't look," Ryder said coldly. The footage ended there. My hand trembled slightly on the mouse. It wasn't imagination anymore. It was confession. I copied the file twice. One for me, one for Colin. Then I took one last look around her room and noticed something faint in the drawer. Another document, half-burned, labeled Shipments 09E. It listed chemicals marked hazardous, signed off by G. Fields. Whatever they were moving, it wasn't just guns. It was explosive-grade gas shipments, possibly the same type I'd seen inside those warehouse cylinders. I took photos of everything, then left quietly. But as I walked out, a figure leaned against my truck. Black jacket, hood up. I raised my hand toward my hip before I recognized the voice. "Fast learner, huh?" Grant said. "You were always better at digging than thinking." I stepped closer. "Came to recover your mess." He smirked bitterly. "You think this proof changes anything? The moment you upload that video, every cop and reporter around the city dies before sundown. Ryder controls people you don't even know exist." "I don't need them," I said coldly. "I just need you." He looked me straight in the eye. "You kill me, she dies. Ryder owns every guard in that hospital. You step out of line, she doesn't wake again." I froze. He saw it, smiled slightly. "You want this to end clean," he said. "Tomorrow, Dock 41, midnight. Ryder will be there. Hand him the drive, walk away. He'll call off the dogs. And if I don't..." Grant's tone turned grave. "Then prepare for another funeral." He climbed into his car and left. Taillights faded until they vanished into the storm. I stood there a long time, hearing only the rain against the hood of my truck. My mind replayed his words over and over. Tomorrow, midnight. They thought I'd hand over the evidence. They thought I'd walk away. They forgot one thing. Navy SEALs never walk away from unfinished missions. So I drove to my storage unit outside town. Inside, under a tarp, sat an old friend, my field gear. Plates, vest, suppressor, recon cam, smoke flares. Things I'd promised myself never to touch again. I traced my hand over the vest patch. SEAL teammate. 23 stab wounds for Morgan. 1 night left for them. They planned a handoff. I planned a burial. The rain didn't stop all night. It came down heavy, washing the streets like the city wanted to hide what was coming. I sat in my truck outside Dock 41, engine off, eyes fixed on the dim light near the harbor storage bay. Midnight, the place where this all began and where it would all end. I checked my watch. 11:57 p.m. Right on time. Across the water, small boats rocked against the waves under the glow of floodlights. Every detail mattered. Every movement could turn fatal. I stepped out quietly. Boots hit wet ground. The air smelled of diesel and sea salt. Somewhere in the distance, seagulls screamed like warning bells. I'd felt that same noise before a firefight, nature's instinct for danger. Under my coat, the body cam flashed green. Colin had insisted I film everything. I told him if I didn't call by sunrise, to release the files. He didn't argue. He just said, "Make sure you come back breathing." I moved toward the warehouse, Dock 41, hugging the shadows along the containers. A faint humming sound came from inside, generators maybe, but no voices. Then, headlights blinked twice from the service road behind me. A black sedan rolled to a stop. Grant stepped out first, coat soaked, collar up. Behind him, two men, Ryder's people, no doubt. They carried rifles under jackets, eyes scanning the dark. Grant looked around nervously. Logan. I stepped out from behind a container, calm, deliberate. He exhaled like he'd just spotted a ghost. You actually came. I told you I would, I said. Where's Ryder? Grant hesitated. He'll meet us once he sees the drive. I held it up, dangling between two fingers. You mean this? He nodded slowly. Give it to me. Let's finish this. I didn't move. You think I don't see it, Grant? Every step you've taken since this started wasn't about saving Morgan or stopping Ryder. It was about protecting yourself. He swallowed hard, rain dripping from his brow. You can't imagine the things he's done. He owns half the city's ports. I tried to. Before he could finish, a sudden click echoed through the dock, rifle safety off. I turned toward the noise as a figure emerged from the shadows, rifle leveled at my chest. Ryder. Same calm walk, same cruel half-smile. Always about timing with you, isn't it? He said. You never learned to stay down. Grant spun, panic flashing in his eyes. You said we'd do this easy, Ryder. No blood. Ryder shot him a glance cold enough to freeze the air. Easy ended when your sister started talking. Then he aimed at me. I didn't wait. I dropped behind a steel drum as his first shot rang out, sparks erupting off the wall. My heartbeat barely kept up with the rhythm of each gunfire echo. Grant ducked behind a container, shouting, Stop! Stop! Ryder, you'll kill us all. Exactly, Ryder growled, stepping forward. I rolled from cover, fired once. Clean hit to his shoulder. He staggered, but didn't fall, just grinned wider. Still the soldier, huh? You think one bullet changes what I built? You built rot, I said. You built lies, he answered. We're not that different. You killed my sister, I shot back. He smiled through the pain. Not yet. That last line sent a jolt of ice through me. My eyes darted toward Grant, who was clutching his phone like a trigger. I lunged forward and ripped it from his hand. On the screen, hospital feed. Morgan's room. A masked man inside, placing something under her bed. I slammed him against the container. What did you do? Insurance, he gasped. Ryder said, if things go wrong, he finishes the job remotely. I hit him once, hard enough to make him spit blood. You gave him access to her. He nodded, breath shaking. He's got a man inside, his own doctor. Every muscle in my body tensed. Ryder laughed behind me. See, that's the beauty of it, brother. You move one wrong piece, she disappears. But I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. I used the move I learned years ago, threw a flash from my belt, blinding light tearing through the smoke. Ryder shouted, staggered, firing blindly. I grabbed Grant's collar and dragged him toward the exit. We dove behind a stack of barrels outside while Ryder cursed inside. The flash had burned half his sight, bought me minutes. Call him off. I yelled into Grant's face. I can't. He coughed blood again. He's insane now. He doesn't answer to anyone. Rain pounded harder, almost drowning my thoughts. The body cam was still running. If they wanted to bury this, they'd have to bury me with it. I loaded my last clip and looked up at the massive sign blinking above Dock 41. Fields Logistics, authorized vendor. How poetic. His name, her blood. I shoved Grant forward through the mud, forcing him toward the dock's far gate. You're telling me where that doctor is, or you're not walking out. He fumbled, voice cracking. Second floor, Sainton Hospital. His real name's Dr. Felix Ward. He works nights. They used him to get past staff security. I stared down the dock. Ryder's shadow reappeared in the doorway, limping but grinning, blood soaking his sleeve. You can't stop it, Logan, he shouted. You burn one hideout, 10 more rise. You'll die thinking you made a difference. I pointed the gun at him. You're right about one thing. He tilted his head. What's that? This isn't about difference. It's about closure. I squeezed the trigger, hit the control switch over his head instead of his chest. The overhead crane groaned, dropping the hanging cargo straight between us, slamming down with a roar that broke through the thunder. When the smoke cleared, Ryder was gone again, vanished through an open hatch at the back. Grant looked at me, shaky. You have no idea what you've started. I didn't start this, I said. You did. He tried to speak again, but I leaned in close. If she dies, you die next. I left him there in the rain, coughing and shaking, while I climbed into the truck and sped towards St. Anne's. My phone buzzed halfway there. Colin's voice came through the radio. Logan, where are you? Hospital, I said tightly. They're making another move. On Morgan? Yes. I'm ending this before she becomes leverage again. You can't just storm, but I'd already cut the line. As the hospital came into view, lights flickering in the storm, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just family anymore. It was cleansing. A quiet, absolute purge. Because if they wanted to take her one more time, I'd show them what real soldiers do when the war hits home. And this time, there wouldn't be any survivors. The storm hung low over the city, leaking thunder into the cracks of every street. By the time I reached St. Anne's, the power flickered like a dying heartbeat. Most lights were running on backup generators. Perfect cover for predators. I parked near the emergency ramp, checked the magazine, and slipped through the side entrance using the stolen access card from Ryder's man. The halls were half empty, strangely silent except for the electric hum of machines. Morgan's room was at the end of the corridor. I moved fast, low, weapon down but ready. Through the glass, she was there, alive, sleeping, monitors steady. But something else caught my eye. Her 4-line had been replaced. Not by the nurse's card, but by a secondary tube pinned under the sheets. I yanked it free and smelled it. Chemical, not saline. Someone had just switched it out minutes earlier. Looking for me. A voice said behind me. I spun around. Dr. Felix Ward stood in the doorway, calm, holding a clipboard he didn't look at. His eyes were too steady for a dying man. You should have left her alone, I said. He smiled faintly. Funny, that's what Grant told me about you. Where's Ryder? He shrugged. You're too late. He's finishing business at the warehouse. I already cleaned that place out. His smile faded. No, you didn't. He lunged. I slammed him against the wall, knocked the syringe from his pocket, and pushed the muzzle of my pistol against his ribs. You've got 3 seconds to tell me where he is. He coughed, smirking even through pain. Basement. East wing. But you won't understand what you'll see down there. Try me. He laughed quietly. He's turning ghosts into soldiers. I didn't have time for riddles. I hit him once, hard enough to drop him, then zip-tied his wrists with a cord from a med tray. Leaving him there breathing was mercy. The elevator was locked out, so I took the emergency stairwell. The lower I went, the colder it got, air thick with gasoline and mold. A single flickering light cast shadows like scars across the concrete. At the bottom, I hit a metal door labeled Maintenance B6. I listened first, muffled sound, low humming. Machines. I pried it open. What waited on the other side didn't belong in any hospital. The entire basement had been gutted, walls replaced with brick caverns, cables hanging, cylinders stacked side by side. The same kind I saw at Dock 41. Gas cylinders. Hundreds of them. I walked among them, heart thudding. The labels were fake, compressed oxygen, refrigerant storage. But one was cracked. Inside, a different seal entirely. Pure industrial gas, more than enough to blow half the city if ignited. Welcome back to the war, a voice echoed. Ryder stepped from between the tanks, limping slightly, but still carrying his rifle. Blood still stained his sleeve, but he looked alive, too alive. You found my heart, he said, spreading his arms. Everything runs from here. I should have buried you years ago, I said. He circled, grin never fading. You still don't get it, Logan. You think this was about vengeance. No, this was about production. Soldiers like us don't die, we adapt. We supply the next war now. By killing my sister. She walked into my factory, he said flatly. Wrong place, wrong truth. I stepped forward. And Grant. He smirked. Grant was never loyal. He used money to buy survival. I used pain. My stomach twisted. So you made him your puppet. Ryder raised his gun slightly. We made him useful. Just like I'll make you. He fired without warning. I ducked behind a tank. The bullet bit sparks from the floor. I moved right, fired 2 shots, both hitting close but not clean. He was faster than I remembered, even wounded. He shouted over the echo. Shoot me all you want, brother. This chamber's pressurized. You'll light us both up like a funeral pyre. My finger eased off the trigger. He was right. One wrong hit, and the gases would ignite. He laughed. There it is. The soldier's hesitation. Then a faint sound above us. Boots on the stairs. Grant. He stumbled down, breath ragged, face white. Ryder, stop this. You'll destroy everything. Ryder smirked at him. Already did, old friend. Grant turned to me. Logan, don't shoot. We can shut the system down first, override the... But Ryder's shot split the air before he finished. Grant fell instantly, a red bloom spreading across his shirt. I froze. My body moved before thought, dragging Grant behind a cylinder while Ryder reloaded, muttering. 2 birds, 1 fire. Grant choked, trying to speak. The valve, left side, cut airflow. I saw it. The main release pipe feeding pressure to the tanks. If I could close it, I might stop the chain reaction waiting to happen. Ryder saw my eyes shift. Don't. I sprinted anyway, dove behind the pipe column, twisted the heavy valve until my hand bled. The hiss of gas slowed to silence. Ryder fired again. 1 round scraped my arm, but I stayed low. I rolled, fired back, catching his leg this time. He collapsed, gun clattering away. I walked up slow, pain screaming in my shoulder. Grant was still breathing weakly behind me. Redemption's not for sale, I said quietly. He took one last breath and went still. I sat there in that dim cellar, surrounded by death and tanks of poison disguised as profit. The war was supposed to be over, but maybe wars like this never ended. Above me, thunder shook the walls. It was time to finish what was left. I picked up the detonator Ryder had dropped, industrial-grade timer. I set it for 30 minutes, enough time to get Morgan out and clear anyone left. Enough time to erase everything they'd built. As I walked out of the cellar, I whispered to the dark, "This is for her," and hit the switch. The timer on the detonator blinked red, 27 minutes. Each flash reminded me that I only had one mission now. Get Morgan out, and end this chapter forever. I climbed out of the cellar, blood soaking my sleeve, adrenaline refusing to let me feel the pain. When I stepped outside, the rain had turned into a quiet drizzle. The city lights blurred through the fog, and the storm had gone still, like the world itself was holding its breath. I could almost hear Morgan's voice in my head, the one that used to calm me down after ugly deployments. "You can stop fighting now, Logan." But I couldn't. Not yet. I reached my truck and hit the gas towards St. Anne's. The streets were empty except for flashing police barricades far off in the distance. Colin's voice came over the comm, "You alive?" "Barely," I said. "I found Grant. He's gone." Silence. Then, "What about Ryder?" "Down for good. But I set a timer. Whole place goes in 20. Colin swore softly. "Damn it, Logan. You can't just..." "I'm not asking permission." I cut the line again and kept driving. No turning back now. When I reached the hospital, 2 uniformed cops stopped me at the gate. "We can't let anyone in," one said. "I'm family," I told them. "Morgan Fields." The name did something. They hesitated, then nodded me through. I didn't wait for more questions, sprinted toward the entrance and straight up the hall. Morgan was sitting upright when I burst in, still pale but alert. The shock on her face said everything. "You look like hell," she whispered. "Feels accurate," I said, forcing a thin smile. "You're getting out now." Her expression shifted. "What happened?" "Long story short, Grant's gone, Ryder's gone, and this city's about to wake up the hard way." I started disconnecting her for. She winced, but didn't fight. "You're shaking," she said quietly. "Just tired," I lied. "You're bleeding. Occupational hazard." Then her hand caught mine. Don't pretend this ends with you walking away, Logan. I know that look. You're not coming back, are you? I paused. Words stuck somewhere between breath and guilt. Morgan, I swear to you, this is only about safety. After tonight, no one will remember their names. Tears filled her eyes. You deserve peace too. Maybe after this, I said softly, though we both knew that was a lie. I wheeled her out, every corridor echoing like a tunnel before collapse. At the exit, Colin's car screeched to a stop. He jumped out, eyes wide. You maniacs just had to pull the fire alarm, didn't you? We're leaving, I said. He looked inside the vehicle. How bad is it? Big, I said. Every tank stacked under that hospital is wired to blow. But it's not a suicide note, it's cleanup. You could end up killing yourself in the process. She's out. That's all that matters. He grabbed my vest before I turned away. You're not going back there alone. You hear me. I don't need backup. I'm not giving you a choice. For once, I didn't argue. Maybe some part of me was too tired to fight the only person left trying to keep me alive. Colin helped Morgan into his car while I grabbed my truck keys. 10 minutes, I said. He frowned. To do what? Make the silence count. Then I was gone. Back toward Dock 41. The timer blinked 8 minutes when I parked at the edge of the pier. The old warehouse loomed ahead like a ghost made of rust and sin. My boots hit the ground one last time, steps slow, deliberate, every breath echoing the years I'd spent fighting wars for the living, only to end up fighting this one for the dead. Inside the cellar, everything was exactly how I left it. Grant's body lay still under tarp, riders beside him. 2 brothers, 2 paths, both destroyed by greed. I crouched between them, wiped the rain off my face, and said quietly, you took everything good and buried it under fuel and money. But you'll burn together. I walked to the detonator mounted on the pipe column. Timer said 5 minutes. Enough to run, not enough to think. I reached for the switch and froze. Ryder's body twitched. A faint groan escaped his mouth. Not dead. He opened one bloodshot eye. Grin half-formed even as blood pooled around him. You think one beating finishes me, he rasped. I aimed my sidearm instantly, hand steady. You don't even have the strength to blink. You won't do it, he said. You need to feel something first. You need me to stay alive long enough to feel it. No, I said coldly. I just need to finish the mission. Then finish your soul too, he coughed. Because after this, that's all you've got left. I held his gaze a second longer, then lowered the muzzle to his chest. Goodbye, brother. The shot echoed through the chamber like thunder. He didn't move again. I stepped back toward the stairwell. The timer beeped in its rhythm. 30 seconds, 20. As I climbed out, my shoulder brushed the frame of the doorway, and I realized how heavy the silence had become. I reached the truck just as the first explosion hit. The ground rippled under my boots, a flash of orange light tearing across the pier. A second blast followed, so loud I felt it in my teeth. The sky bloomed fire behind me, as if the sea itself wanted to spit the filth back out. I drove until I couldn't hear the blasts anymore. When I stopped miles later on a cliff overlooking the burning docks, Colin's car pulled in beside me. Morgan was awake in the back seat, staring at the glow. She looked at me through the rain-spotted window and mouthed only one word. Why? I didn't have an answer. Maybe because sometimes the only way to end war is by burning everything it ever touched. Lightning flashed over the harbor, painting it gold. And for the first time in years, I felt something almost human, quiet. But peace. Not yet. Not until the last shadow behind all this was gone. The next morning, I woke to the smell of smoke riding the wind. The docks were gone. News drones hovered over ash and twisted steel, spilling headlines about a gas explosion at an abandoned storage facility. No one mentioned my name. No one ever would. That was the point. I leaned on the hood of my truck, shoulders heavy, watching small fires still burning miles away. My hands were raw, the blood on them long dried, but still there. The silence that followed violence. Every soldier knew that sound. It's not peace. It's just what's left. Colin walked up behind me, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. It's all over television. They think it was a malfunction. Let them, I said. Truth doesn't need an audience. He nodded slowly. And Ryder? Gone. I said, no emotion in it. This time for good. He looked at my arm, still bandaged. You need a hospital. I gave a tired smile. Hospitals bring too many questions. He sighed and took a slow sip. So what now? I stared toward the horizon. A line of gray hugged the sea, morning trying to fight through it. Now, I said, we disappear. Colin lowered his voice. Your sister's asking for you. She won't calm down till she sees you. I turned toward him, the unspoken weight between us thick as fog. She's alive, that's all that matters. Tell her I'll come soon. Logan, he started, but I was already walking to the truck. She thinks you're dead, he called after me. Maybe that's better, I said. He didn't follow. He just watched me drive away. Miles down the highway, where city dust turned to open land, I stopped at a closed gas station, the kind forgotten by road maps. The place smelled of stale oil and silence. I sat on the curb, popped open the glove box, and pulled out Grant's company pass. The metal piece still carried his initials. GF. It looked ordinary. It wasn't. Inside the edge of the pass was a microdrive, probably overlooked in all that mess. I slid it into my laptop, half expecting junk files, and froze. Encrypted folders, high-level security protocols, government seals. Not Ryder's doing. Not Grant's either. Someone higher had funded the entire operation. Names flashed on the corrupted headers. Cobalt Directive, Defense Approval. Cobalt. That wasn't a gang project. It was a covert military clearance code. Whoever ran the Serpents wasn't just building weapons. They were stealing technology straight from classified research and using ex-operatives to distribute it. Everything came from inside the system. Ryder and Grant were middle pieces, disposable scaffolding in a bigger structure. The war didn't start with them. It started higher, somewhere that uniform power turned into criminal quiet. My chest tightened. Morgan nearly died not because she saw something illegal. She saw something national. Classified. For a moment, the smell of burning metal from the docks came back stronger, mixing with gasoline in the air. I realized I was sitting next to the station's underground pump, a metaphor too fitting. Fuel beneath peace, waiting for one spark. I shut the laptop and looked up. On the horizon, gray smoke still stretched thin across the coast. Ryder was gone. Grant was gone. But the people who built them, still breathing. The irony hit me. After all the revenge, the war hadn't shrunk. It had just changed shape. For the first time in a long while, I laughed quietly. It wasn't pleasant, just weary. You tried to bury your crimes, I whispered to no one. But you buried them under a soldier. The wind shifted, carrying the faint echo of sirens from the city. News vans, emergency teams, government suits, all circling the ruins like flies. They'd blame a leak. They'd write reports. They'd clean the ashes. But I knew better. I opened the truck door, sat inside, and poured a few drops of gasoline from a small canister onto the seat beside me, just enough to mask the smell of smoke on my clothes. The fuel shimmered on the metal, catching bits of sunlight through the windshield. Gasoline and silence. That's how wars end. Not with glory, just residue. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number, again. I almost ignored it, but habit won. You finished the pawns. Ready for the kings. No name attached. No trace in metadata. Just coordinates further south, near the airbase that used to fund my old missions. Under the message, another attachment, a live feed. Morgan, sitting in a recovery ward, talking to a nurse. Her vitals steady, but the camera wasn't hospital security. It was military-grade drone footage. Someone still watching. My heart went cold. So this wasn't the end. Not yet. They wanted me to see her safe, so I'd follow the map. They wanted their weapon back, the soldier they built and broke. I tossed the phone into the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. "You picked the wrong ghost to hunt," I muttered. Outside, the wind bent the flagpole behind the gas station, the tattered cloth flapping weakly against the storm. I started the engine. The sound felt both familiar and hollow. Somewhere out there, past the smoke and lies, someone was pulling the last strings. If they wanted me to finish the mission, I would. But this time, the battlefield wouldn't be theirs. The coordinates led me south, to an old airbase buried under clouds and sand. Half the hangars still wore faded U.S. insignias. The other half had been stripped clean. It smelled like rust and memory. I parked a mile out, covered the truck with tarp, and approached on foot through the fog. The silence here wasn't natural. It felt stage-managed, like someone was listening. I reached the perimeter fence and spotted the surveillance dome tucked beyond the runway. No guards, no noise, but fresh tire tracks cutting through the dirt. The place was active, just quiet enough to hide it. I crept closer, slipped through a maintenance hatch, and found a stairwell leading down. The deeper I went, the stranger it got. Lights humming, walls polished, not a ruin but a functioning installation. At the base of the steps, a door marked Cobalt Operations blinked green. Ryder's ghost still lingered here. It wasn't hard to feel it. I drew my pistol and entered. Cold air hit me first. Then rows of servers and crates stacked higher than I could see. Every box was stamped with the same crest. Fields Logistics, Defense R&D. So that was the truth. My brother hadn't just fed gangs. He'd built a bridge between the military and the black market. And this was the other side of that bridge. A voice came from the shadows. "I wondered when you'd find us." I turned, gun steady. A man in a gray uniform stepped out. Older, calm, badge-reading Director Victor Hale. His face looked carved out of command. "I know who you are," he said. "Navy SEAL. 2 tours. 2 medals. Then a quiet discharge. You were perfect for recruitment once." "What did you make, Victor?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "A self-sustaining operation. No nations. No rules. Soldiers who don't walk away when war ends." "You made ghosts," I said. "Ghosts fight clean," he replied. "They follow orders without conscience. Ryder, Grant, test runs. The real project starts here." He nodded toward a glass room where half-assembled drones lined the walls, each equipped with small mounted capsules. 25 drones, each carrying gas payloads from those same cylinders you destroyed. Worldwide reach. Instant denial. That's efficiency. My stomach turned. "You're planning another attack." He didn't blink. "We don't attack. We cleanse chaos." "You call it cleansing," I said quietly. "I call it murder." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "I know your sister survived." That one sentence lit something inside me. He continued, calm as ice. "She's leverage, Logan. We keep her safe. You walk away from this facility. No one reports, no one dies." I lowered my pistol slightly, pretending to consider it, but the second he blinked, my aim shifted just a few inches left. I fired, not at him, but at the glass chamber behind him. Bullets tore through steel, gas hissed into the air, alarms exploded. The drones shorted instantly, sparks leaping like fireworks. Victor ducked, coughing. I slammed him into the control panel and pinned his head against the glass. "You've threatened the last person I care about," I said. "Bad move." He struggled, breath coming ragged. "You'll burn with it all, just like them." "Been burned before." I shoved him to the ground, set my remaining charge at the center console, and sprinted out. The building's alarm screamed through the tunnels like a living thing. Flames burst overhead, racing faster than I could run. By the time I reached the exit ladder, smoke swallowed everything. I climbed, lungs tearing, the taste of metal thick in my throat. When I burst out into daylight, the airbase was already shaking apart. The explosion ripped through the ground, turning that hidden empire into a crater of dust and glass. I dropped to my knees on the sand, coughing hard, unable to tell if the tears in my eyes came from smoke or memory. It was over. truly over this time. Hours later, I stood alone on the ridge watching the last column of smoke coil toward the sun. My phone buzzed once. Colin. He said nothing when I answered, just breathed. It's done, I whispered. Logan, keep her safe, Colin. Don't tell her where I go next. Just tell her, we won. Where are you going? He asked softly. Where soldiers go after the last war, I said. Some place that doesn't remember my name. He stayed silent for a moment. She'll ask for you. Then tell her this, I said. Her brother finally kept a promise. I tossed the phone into the sand, watched the waves take it. The sky had started clearing, sunlight crawling along the horizon, peeling back the gray. I closed my eyes, let the wind hit my face, and for the first time felt no weight pressing down. No orders, no ghosts, just quiet. Forgiveness didn't feel like peace, it felt like surrender. And maybe that was enough. Somewhere behind the rising light, I imagined Morgan smiling again, free at last from every shadow we'd buried. And as the smoke faded for good, I whispered to the empty sky, You're safe now, kid. That's all I ever wanted. Then I walked off into the sand, leaving nothing behind but boot prints and silence. Dawn broke soft and gold across the quiet shoreline, painting the world in colors I hadn't seen in years. The sea was calm again. The smoke from the airbase was gone, swallowed by the wind like it had never been there. For the first time in forever, my phone didn't buzz, my heart didn't race, and my mind didn't drift to missions or maps or blood. Just the waves. Just peace. I rented a small cabin near the coast, a nameless place where no one cared who I was or what ghosts followed me. The locals called me the quiet man. I didn't correct them. I spent days fixing small boats, helping kids learn to tie knots, and watching sunsets turn the water gold. One evening, as the tide rolled gentle over the sand, I pulled out a small wooden box. Inside were 5 things I'd kept through it all: Morgan's bracelet, Grant's lighter, the broken dog tag, a photo of my SEAL unit, and the torn patch from my old uniform. I buried them under the sand, right by the waterline. Some memories aren't meant to be carried forever. A faint voice called behind me. Uncle Logan. I turned. Morgan's son, 6 years old, full of sunshine and curiosity. His laughter echoed across the beach the way his mother's once did. Behind him, Morgan walked slowly along the shore, her hair catching the light. She was whole again. No scars could touch that. She smiled when our eyes met. No words. No need. Just that silent forgiveness that no courtroom or medal could ever give. The boy ran up, holding a seashell. Mom says this one's lucky, he said proudly. I knelt, looked at the small shell in his palm, and smiled. Then keep it close. You'll need it when the world gets hard. He looked up. Were you really a hero? The question hit deeper than I expected. I stared at the waves for a long time. No, I said finally. Just a man who didn't stop when he should have. Morgan smiled sadly hearing that. Sometimes that's exactly what heroes do. We stood there until the sunset swallowed the horizon, the sound of the ocean closing every wound that words never could. Somewhere above the clouds, thunder whispered faintly, then faded for good. Maybe a storm can rest once it's done its job. Maybe people can, too. The world kept moving on. New wars. New headlines. But deep down, I knew this story was finished. And still, each night, as I sat on that porch, watching the sea, one thought stayed clear. Some revenge brings pain, some brings freedom, but true justice brings silence. And silence, that's where peace hides. Then, turning toward the horizon, I whispered to myself, almost like talking to the ones I lost. Was it worth losing everything, just to feel peace again? That question still hung in the air, unanswered, but honest. I looked at the fading sun and said softly, let me know where you're watching from, my friends. I want to know how far this story traveled,